전투 상황을 놓고 보면 피해가 엄청 커요. 우리가 전투할 당시도 우리가 마지막 전투단이었어요. 선행한 전투단들이 모두 희생되고 부상했고 해서 우리가 마지막으로 참전했어요.
결심이 생기려고 하는 것 같기도 합니다.
아, 우리 남한 쪽으로 이렇게 가는 거에 대해서요?
Not knowing where the hell they were going, with the threat of their entire family being wiped out if they surrendered, and never even having seen a combat drone in their lives. And so it was that roughly 12,000 North Korean soldiers arrived to fight in Ukraine, to be used as little more than cannon fodder. And this is how some of the latest North Koreans to be captured in combat have described it. Thanks to them, we know that North Korean soldiers have been massacred. And yes, we also know that many of those soldiers didn't even know where on earth they were. They couldn't even imagine that they were fighting directly against Ukraine. At first, they thought it was just some kind of training, typical military maneuvers, but it wasn't.
Families of North Korean troops captured in Russia will be executed, former Pyongyang soldier tells ABC News.
That's the way the satrap in Pyongyang is doing it. Of course, if you're capable of sending 12,000 young compatriots to certain death, it's impossible for you to do so without expecting anything in return. Something very, very big has to be on its way. And the truth is that these soldiers could be just a glimpse of a growing alliance between North Korea and Russia. We're talking about a relationship that is becoming so enmeshed that even Russian soldiers wounded in Ukraine are being treated in North Korean hospitals due to lack of capacity in Russia's own infrastructure.
The treatment, the attention, the food, everything related to my stay in North Korea was absolutely free.
But there is more. The children of deceased Russian soldiers are being sheltered in North Korean children's camps. Putin, in fact, personally thanked Kim Jong-un for the gesture. But wait a second, what the hell is North Korea doing taking in Russian orphans? Well, VisualPolitik community, brace yourselves because this is just the tip of the iceberg. What is happening is not simply a one-off military alliance, it's something much more dangerous. Since the war in Ukraine began, North Korea has left no doubt as to where it stands in this conflict. For example, on the 24th of February 2022, just days after the invasion, it directly blamed the US hegemonic policy for the war, and on March the 2nd, it voted with Russia against the UN resolution condemning the invasion. Since then, everything has been turned up, much higher.
Latest North Korean missile sparks debate over Russian links.
Recent advances in North Korean military technology are already generating the first suspicions in this regard. And not surprisingly, official visits have multiplied, and agreements are multiplying as well. In June 2024, both countries signed a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty, an agreement that establishes that both countries will help each other militarily, technologically, and politically in the face of any external aggression. A pact that, take note, could mean a turning point for military technology and also Pyongyang's nuclear technology. So, this dangerous coalition has raised many questions for us. What exactly is Russia seeking in this alliance with North Korea? What does North Korea gain by sending 12,000 soldiers to certain death? Are we facing a new union of evil that will go far beyond Ukraine? Well, stay tuned because we're going to discuss and analyze all of that here today on VisualPolitik. So, let's get started.
Nuclear symbiosis.
The war in Ukraine has left Russia with more holes than Swiss cheese: economic, diplomatic, and also military. Because as gigantic as the Kremlin may seem, Putin, as we have told you in many videos, has had a really basic problem. He has been running out of missiles, bullets, and markets to buy them from, having been completely isolated internationally, at least until Trump's arrival, has caused Russia to have to seek new friends. And what better friend than the country most marginalized by the rest of the international community? Well, as we say around here, no sooner said than done.
Recent reports indicate that North Korea has transferred 20,000 containers of ammunition to Russia, potentially containing up to 9.4 million 152mm shells.
For months now, the Russian army has needed to replenish millions of artillery shells to keep up the pace of fire on the front lines. And of course, with traditional suppliers out of the game, the options are greatly reduced. This alliance was born from this situation. It's a relationship that seems to be straight out of the Cold War, but one that is more alive than ever. Russia needs shells, rockets, Old equipment, outdated launchers, anything that will fire and explode. And North Korea has all that in its stockpiles, accumulated over decades. It may not be the most modern equipment, but it works. And in a war of attrition like this, what matters is that the cannon keeps spitting non-stop. But that's not all. While North Korea is getting rid of all outdated weaponry, at the same time, the war is also allowing it to test its latest military technology in real combat, which, of course, will be of great help to them in their military development plans. For them, the war in Ukraine is proving to be a great testing ground. However, not only are they going to be able to hone their national weapons systems with battle experience, but the Kremlin is also going to provide Pyongyang with advanced military technology. Because yes, this is another part of the agreement, a barter without bills, whereby North Korea sends old ammunition, and in return, Russia shares with it knowledge that the North Koreans have been unsuccessfully pursuing for years, from missile guidance systems to navigation software, sensors, and even more efficient propellants. But that's not all, not by a long shot. Check out this news.
Russia sends 447 goats to North Korea after Kim Jong-un sucks up to Putin. Moscow and Pyongyang have a wide-ranging deal covering sectors including education, agriculture, and tourism.
VisualPolitik community, this is not a joke. Let's see. The goats are just an example. A symbol, a curious footnote that, nevertheless, reveals something very important. If there is another reason behind Pyongyang's rapprochement with Moscow, it is precisely hunger. To give you an idea, 10.7 million of the 25.9 million North Koreans suffer from malnutrition, almost 1 out of every 2 people. What's more, 18% of children have severe growth problems. In other words, within the North Korean dictatorship, we can find a real humanitarian tragedy, silenced by the secrecy of the regime, but completely real. And in the face of this crisis, who has come to the rescue? Yes, surprisingly, Russia. Moscow has sent North Korea grain, goats, agricultural equipment, tractors, fertilizers, and even helped to build farms. Of course, it's no coincidence that satellite images show an increase in agricultural facilities and livestock in areas close to the border. And naturally for Kim Jong-un, keeping his population minimally fed is essential. I mean, it's not a matter of principle or remorse or anything like that, but it's vital for the very stability of the regime. And now, that food comes with an invisible label, made in Russia. The same label is carried on the 1 million barrels of oil delivered by Russia to North Korea between March and November 2024. Now, are a handful of missiles and a few goats enough for these true international villains? Nothing could be further from the truth. This alliance not only strengthens both countries on the inside, but also shields them on the outside. Check it out.
Russia helping North Korea with sanctions evasion. Nuclear technology in return for soldiers. Arms, Budanov says.
Thanks to its seat on the UN Security Council, Russia has begun to do Pyongyang's dirty work. Moscow has blocked the renewal of the UN monitoring program that oversaw North Korea's development of ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. In other words, it has taken away the international community's main radar on what is going on in Kim's laboratories. And of course, if you have weapons, you know how to use them, and no one is watching you, improvements come quickly. North Korea has accelerated its weapons program as never before.
There is concern that North Korea could receive technologies that would enable it to launch large quantities of maneuverable cruise missiles to overwhelm US and South Korean missile defenses.
And how on earth did he do it? Well, with 4 lines of development that are absolutely crucial. First, we're talking about cruise missiles that are more maneuverable and difficult to intercept. Secondly, the miniaturization of nuclear warheads to fit into smaller and more mobile warheads. Thirdly, there is the development of the dreaded intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, designed to reach US territory. And to top it all off, we have the development of submarine-launched ballistic missiles. These are 4 absolutely crucial military upgrades that Pyongyang has been developing at full speed since the invasion of Ukraine began. And truth be told, don't think they've gone out of their way to hide it.
North Korea's new submarine carries 10 nuclear missiles. North Korea says it tested a solid fuel missile tipped with a hypersonic weapon.
All this is not just for the sake of it. It has one clear objective. As in any dictatorship, the first priority is to ensure the survival of the regime. For Kim Jong-un, nuclear weapons are not just a threat. They are his life insurance, his shield, and his lifeline. Nuclear capability basically ensures that the status quo in North Korea is guaranteed in the long term. But how far will this alliance go? Because there are more players here who surely have something to say. What is China's view on all this? How does this new alliance affect the balance of power in Asia? Should the West be concerned? Well, watch this space.
Map heats up again.
In this new map of malevolent alliances, there is a giant elephant in the room, one that, until now, has played the game of watching from the sidelines but can no longer pretend it's not involved. We are referring, of course, to China. Because you see, for years, Beijing has been North Korea's only serious friend, its main trading partner, its diplomatic backer, and its strategic cushion. To give you an idea, by the end of 2023, 98% of North Korea's foreign trade was directly dependent on China. For that reason, one might think that as Moscow begins to embrace its new North Korean partner, China should be starting to blow smoke out of its ears. But it's not. Or at least, that's what Beijing is telling the world for now. Check it out.
North Korea and Russia are two independent sovereign states. How they develop bilateral relations is their own matter.
Apparently, Beijing's position is based on respect for this bilateral relationship. And indeed, Beijing continues to reiterate its complete opposition to international sanctions against Pyongyang. So the question is, why? Of course, it's not about a fondness for good neighborly relations or anything like that. China continues to quietly help North Korea circumvent international sanctions, facilitating oil smuggling, tolerating illegal North Korean workers, and even allowing hackers for the regime to operate in its territory. So the question, once again, is why? Well, it turns out that if there's one thing Beijing is clear about, it's that even if Kim Jong-un is inconvenient, a collapsed North Korea would be even worse. What's more, let's just say that staying close to North Korea means continuing to put a thorn in Washington's eye. And the way things have been going lately, well, that suits Beijing very well. Even so, the fact that Moscow is getting more and more involved means that Xi Jinping is not entirely at ease either. That is to say, that everything can have a limit, and that limit could already be passed. This, at least, is what US and Japanese intelligence thinks. That China is increasingly uncomfortable with the growing level of military cooperation between Russia and North Korea, the arrival of North Korean troops in Russia, the high-level visits, the technological assistance. All this is being done without Beijing playing any role at all, and without anyone asking their permission. And not surprisingly, if Kim Jong-un is emboldened by Putin, he could even become more unpredictable. He may accelerate his nuclear tests, he may increase his aggressiveness on the peninsula, or he may simply ignore his old protector. In short, the story is getting to a level where China might be starting to feel displaced. We'll have to see how this develops. But take note, because China is not the only one in the international community concerned about this possible change in the status quo. Over the past year, North Korea has increased its military provocations on the inter-Korean border to a level not seen in decades. It's no longer just a matter of launching missiles into the sea during US election campaigns. No, they're now deploying tactical ballistic missile launchers near the demarcation line with South Korea. They have also built the largest transport and launch vehicle in their history, a beastly truck designed to move nuclear missiles with regional and even intercontinental range. Be that as it may, the fact is that this is generating a lot of concern in Seoul. Until now, they had things more or less under control, but now the agreement between Moscow and Pyongyang could bring everything down, and that will force them to make a move. Pay attention, because at this rate, it's not out of the question that we will soon see a South Korea with nuclear capabilities. In short, North Korea is more armed, more protected, and more aggressive than ever. Russia has found a bold new partner. For now, China watches, evaluates, and probably makes plans on how to sever this relationship. It's curious, but here, for once, the interests of Beijing and Washington could run parallel paths. Very strange. For now, the question is, how far do you think this relationship will go? Leave us your opinions below in the comments, and we'll start a debate. And very important, if you like this video, like it and subscribe to VisualPolitik if you haven't already done so. These are small things that help us out a lot. As always, thanks for being there. All the best. I'll see you next time.